brought to you by Manscaped.com. Go check them out and use the promo code TGT20 for 20% off your first purchase and free shipping. I'm your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I'd like to welcome in a recent graduate of Clemson University, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right, and we have our special guest today. I might as well just say, as always, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing fine today.
All right, let's start off with the big news. The Jets won, but did they really, Sam?
No, they didn't win. Are you kidding me? No, they're number 2 in the draft rankings right now, below the Jacksonville Jaguars. So obviously you're going to pick Trevor Lawrence there. If you're in New York at this point, you got to start wondering, is Justin Fields worth the second overall pick when you have Sam Darnold already on your roster? If you just change out the coaching staff, you'd rather pick Justin Fields, a guy who I think has 5 interceptions between Indiana and Northwestern, has 5 interceptions and maybe 2 touchdowns in those games. I don't know if I'm not taking Justin Fields as number 2 overall right now. If I'm the Jets, I'm trading back. I'm trying to find something new.
I wouldn't take Justin Fields anytime ever in the first 2 rounds. I think he's the 5th or 6th best quarterback at best in this draft. And I think what Sam says has some validity, Steve. I think Sam Darnold's the guy. I think they need a head coach. They need to put some players around him. But it sucks not to get Trevor Lawrence because I think, like Joe Burrow, he's going to be a transcendent player in the NFL. But I think Sam Darnold, he played a great game yesterday, completed 71% of his passes, 207 yards and a touchdown. I don't think that there is as big a loss here as Jacksonville would be if they had to stick with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, this just presents a lot of interesting options here. First off, I'm not sure I'd give up on Darnold yet. But that to be able to take the number 1 pick and get a talent as good as Lawrence appears to be on paper, that's a blow to the Jets to get a player like that. However, like Sam said, the implications of trade opportunities and getting, like you said in pre-show, some offensive line to support Darnold a little more, give him some protection, maybe trade down with that pick. And you got to look at the last 2 games of each of these schedules. I'm not sure what the Jets are. Most likely the Jets probably aren't going to win again. And I know the Colts play Jacksonville in the final game of the season. I don't know who else Jacksonville plays, but it's not likely that either team's going to win again. So, you've got to look at it that way. But I think it presents some really neat opportunities now for both teams going out and maybe making a better decision than the Jets just taking Lawrence when they've got Darnold, who's a valid candidate for a starting quarterback job in the NFL and certainly played like it yesterday. But they can backfill in some positions now if they don't get the first pick or trade that pick down from number 2, because I agree. I don't know there's another quarterback worth the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah, the Jaguars play the Bears next, which should be a loss. The Colts should lose. This is the thing. Every time we look at these guys, both of these teams, we think they should lose, Sam. But you never know, as we saw yesterday. But yesterday, we've got the Los Angeles Rams, and the NFC is basically a big cluster right now. I don't think there's any team. I think the Saints may be the best team, but without Michael Thomas, there's some issues there. The other thing is Jared Goff was really bad yesterday. I mean, he's throwing the ball in the ground on passes. He looked jittery in the pocket. It was horrible. It was so bad at one point, I thought he was trying to play NFL quarterback with a Nerf football.
Well, this is what Jared Goff is at this point, though. I mean, Jared Goff's going to have 2 or 3 games a year where he's incredible. He throws for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's going to have 4 a year where he's going to have 200 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. This is who Jared Goff is at this point. And I don't know if it's the lack of the running game or it's the loss of Todd Gurley. I don't know if it's the offensive line, which certainly didn't really help him today. But you got to sit down and look at this team right now. Jared Goff, at the way he's going, they're not going to be able to get rid of him because of the massive contract extension he signed. He's stuck with LA basically. But really, I mean, this guy is maybe a top 15 quarterback in weeks. I mean, he's really on a fringe top 20 guy some weeks, especially after playing the Jets. You lose the Jets this way, you have to wonder, do you really want Goff around for the next 5 years?
Not if you want to win a Super Bowl, you don't. Because the bad thing is, with a good quarterback, this is a Super Bowl contender. With Jared Goff, they're a team that may come out in a wild card game and look awesome and score 40 points, and then the next week lose 23-3.
Because they have the defense. They have defense. I think they were entered the weekend ranked top 3 in pass yards, rush yards, and total points allowed per game. So they've been up there the entire season. They have Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey in that, and you've got receiving options in Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, and I like Cam rookie running back. It's just the background. The quarterback and the offensive line are the 2 biggest issues on this team, and they haven't figured out a way to fix either one of them.
All right, yesterday, Steve, we had a possible Super Bowl preview with the New Orleans Saints and the Kansas City Chiefs. A great game. The Chiefs won the game 32-29. What do you take away from this?
But these are the two. Well, these are probably your Super Bowl teams, barring upsets at this point forward. I think that getting Drew Brees back healthy. I mean, Brees coming off of injury he's come off of in the first game looked damn good. He didn't look like he missed a beat. He just a little rusty, probably a little sore, a little winded, so to speak. But I mean, that game could have gone either way, and I don't think that there's anybody as good as Kansas City in the AFC right now. They're head and shoulders above everybody else in the AFC. I still think it's probably going to come down to the Packers. Home field may come into play now, although it's not a crowd-based home base. It's just going up to Lambeau and that kind of weather. And I know Kansas City is prone to cold weather as well, but not like at Lambeau. Can get in the winter. So I thought it was a great game. I thought it's probably a prelude to what's going to happen in the Super Bowl if somebody doesn't get upset. And both teams are capable of getting upset. So great game, fun game to watch. 2 good quarterbacks going at it, 2 good football teams going at it, and that's what you hope for.
Well, I think the one thing you take away from this is I think you saw 2 very well-coached teams here. And the New Orleans Saints game plan, basically, Sam, was to defend the pass first, avoiding stacking the box, making the pre-snap reads easier for Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City racked up 179 yards on the ground, but New Orleans essentially achieved what they wanted, which was holding Kansas City below 250 passing yards. They sacked Mahomes 3 times, but the offense is what killed the Saints here. Drew Brees was absolutely horrible yesterday. They were 1 for 11 on 3rd downs. But an interesting narrative to me is developing with the Chiefs. This is the 2nd consecutive week Kansas City's faced a stout defense. It was forced to adjust. Basically, teams are now making them beat them with the run just so you can take them out of the pace of the game they want to play. But the scary thing is here, you get the injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's got a high ankle sprain, which usually is at least 3 or 4 weeks that you're out here, which I think makes this a little dangerous for Kansas City, whether they have him for that first playoff game or not. But when you look at it, Kansas City can beat you both ways. But the Saints, I think it's safe to say, if Drew Brees was on his game yesterday, this could have been an entirely different outcome.
Yeah, Edwards-Helaire was out for at least the remainder of the season. And you mentioned Drew Brees. He turned it on. It's like looking a little bit more normal in the snap. The first half was awful on his part. I think he started the game 0 for 6. And at one point, he was like 2 for 11 or something like that. He did not have a very good first half. If he had played like he did in the second half the entire game, I think the Saints might have really won because he looked much better in that second half. And we're talking about the Chiefs now looking a little bit vulnerable. They haven't won a game by multiple scores since they played the Jets over 6 weeks ago. So it's been a while since they've had a dominant win, but at the same point, they haven't lost during that stretch either. It's very interesting to look at Kansas City. I think they are vulnerable. I think a team like Buffalo could beat them in the right situation. Maybe even Tennessee. It's just a situation where we haven't seen them play where they've gone against a prime opponent. I know the Saints are a great team, but no Michael Thomas. Drew Brees is coming back after being hurt for a while. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with a team that's fully healthy and fully ready to go and play like it's a playoff game.
Yeah, will Michael Thomas ever be back, Sam?
I don't know about Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has dealt with so many injuries this year. And frankly, they are better with him on the field. I can say that, definitely. And we're looking at him right now. He is on the injury reserve list with an ankle issue. They have not determined how long he's done for the regular season. They're going to hope to get him back for the playoffs.
Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say the comment you made about the Chiefs not winning by more than 1 score now. 2 things to take away from that. A, they're still winning. And B, it's showing me that they can win the close games. that they're not a front-running team that gets themselves 2 or 3 touchdowns up and then just glides through, that they are gutting and grinding a little bit right now. And I think that's a tribute to Andy Reid and the way he teaches football and plays football. And you look at some of his better Philadelphia teams played the same way, just grinded out football, and they're getting a little bit more into that. And so to me, that's just another observation that these guys are finding different ways to win. The bullseye on the back of the Chiefs is as big as it's been on any team in the last couple of years, short of the Patriots. And, they're still winning regardless of how. It's survive and advance now, baby.
My question is this, Sam. If we remember with Andy Reid, he would fail in the playoffs so many times in Philadelphia because he'd want to throw the ball. He wouldn't run the ball. We're seeing him run the ball now. When we get to the playoffs, will he still be willing to play this way to win these games? Because I think against the New Orleans Saints or against the Buffalo Bills, if they come out and play defense this way against him and he decides to throw the ball, Patrick Mahomes is great, but they're going to lose the game that way. So do you think that he's going to be able to settle down and run the ball this much during the playoffs, or do you think the ego will get in the way there?
Well, I think he's going to have Patrick Mahomes kind of give him a little bit of a nudge here, because I don't think Andy Reid by himself will make that decision. I think if you have Patrick Mahomes maybe telling me, hey, look what we're seeing from defense. We've seen this before. We know we can run the ball here and get 5 yards, maybe draw this game out and still win that way. I think then you'll be fine. But it's just Andy Reid making the decision. I am a little worried he'll go full pass happy and try to hit those 50-yard bombs to Tyreek Hill and those 30-yard passes over the middle of Travis Kelce, because that plays right into the teeth of these defenses for teams like the Saints and the Buffalo Bills, whose defense is playing much better in recent weeks.
All right, last night, the Cleveland Browns getting.
Wait a minute. I got a couple points here. One, if I could just address a couple things.
Sure.
First off, Mike, to your comment, I don't know that the Saints will ever get or the Chiefs will ever get a shot at the Bills, because the Bills are going to have to go through Indianapolis to get there, and I don't think that's going to happen. Secondly, I think that I like what I'm seeing with Mahomes in terms of not being self-centered enough that he feels he needs to throw the ball 30, 40 times a game to be Patrick Mahomes. I mean, to be willing to take 200-yard games, passing games for what's been the most prolific quarterback in the NFL last couple of years, and to go ahead and take it and grind it out and win. Hopefully he's teaching Andy Reid something right there too, and Reid's picking up on it. But I think if the Chiefs continue to diversify their offenses are doing right now, I think they're going to be awful tough to beat by anybody.
Well, I don't think that Patrick Mahomes had anything to teach Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid learned his lesson from those years in Philadelphia.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I think.
My point there is that he's teaching Mahomes, he's teaching Reid that, hey, I can play football this way. If that's how you want to play the game, we can win this way too.
Well, put it like this. How many teams, Steve, do we see that want to throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game? How many of them win a Super Bowl? The closest you got to it as of late was probably the Denver Broncos when they got blown out by Seattle. That was a predominantly pass-first team. You fast forward a year or two, when the Broncos get back to the Super Bowl, they're predominantly a defensive team that runs the ball, and they win the Super Bowl. So I think I don't think you can win a Super Bowl throwing the ball 50 times a game. My concern now is the high ankle sprain with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because if you don't have him completely healthy and teams play defense against you like this, Patrick Mahomes may be able to go off for 1 or 2 games, but eventually in the playoffs against the best teams, it's going to catch up to you. So right now, my worry more is about the health of their running backs more than anything else. But all right, let's transition to the Cleveland Browns, who look like they're actually going to make the playoffs. Who would have thought that? Baker Mayfield. I thought even though it was only a 20-6 game, I think that Baker Mayfield looked good throughout the game. He maintained, he played well. 27 of 32, 297, 2 touchdowns. The Giants defense played really well against the Browns' vaunted run game. And when you look at this, I think this is a huge win for Cleveland for one simple fact, Sam. Last week, they lost to Baltimore on a Monday night in heartbreaking fashion when they were set up to possibly win the AFC North, and to come back 6 days later against a Giants team fighting to get into first place or stay into first place in the NFC East. I thought this was an impressive game.
No, like you said, they didn't, because the Giants have a really good defensive front right now. So it was on Baker Mayfield. This has been like the 4th or 5th week in a row where Baker Mayfield's gone out and played well. I believe over the past 4 or 5 weeks, he's got a passer rating of over 110. He's only thrown 1 interception during that time. So he's playing like the guy we expected him to be after his rookie season. This is finally starting to click for him. And he's doing it without Odell Beckham Jr. He's doing it with Austin Hooper being beat up at tight end. So there's been a bunch of injuries here. And Baker Mayfield's still playing very well. The Browns are going to be a team, especially if that running game and that offensive line stay healthy going into the playoffs. It's going to be hard for some of these pass-happy teams to beat them.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be hard for pass-happy teams to beat the Browns because I don't think the Browns secondary is that good. I don't think the Giants are really a team where you can gauge your ability to stop the pass. I mean, I just think the Browns are going to have issues. We saw it against Baltimore, which Baltimore really, most of that was just running the ball on them. So that's kind of the problem. You're going to get a shortened game with the Browns playing the kind of game they want where both teams run for 300 yards and it ends up 45-42. If they can get some kind of defense outside of Myles Garrett's pass rush, I think the Browns could win a playoff game or two, Steve.
I would agree.
Okay, Steve. Next up, the Falcons.
I mean, you want me to fabricate crap?
No, you don't have to fabricate crap.
I agree with you entirely. I think that you continue to see Baker Mayfield get better and better a little bit incrementally each game. And it's not a one-game wonder with him. He's doing, like Sam said, he's doing this every game, and he's doing it whatever presents itself to him in terms of his own team. And he's adapting and getting things done. And you're right. The Baltimore game could have gone either way. So I think that the Browns are a team you don't want to play in the playoffs.
All right, next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came from behind to beat the Atlanta Falcons 31-27 because that's what Tom Brady does to the Atlanta Falcons. And there was a 17-0 halftime deficit. They had only gained 60 yards for the game, the Bucs. The Bucs came out in the second half and just blew the doors off the Falcons' defense. I think from what I see, I think Tom Brady's connection with Mike Evans seems to be heating up. I think he needs to try to force the ball to him even more often, Sam. And Antonio Brown had the biggest play of the game yesterday.
Yeah, you can get Antonio Brown a little more involved in the offense. You already have Mullins, Cameron Brate, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski. You have so many weapons to throw the ball to. When you get Brown, suddenly this offense looks much better. My main concern here is it was the tale of two halves. So I want to know exactly what changed at halftime. Was it the fact that they made adjustments at halftime, that Bruce Arians was making adjustments at halftime? Or was it that Tom Brady took more control of the game in the second half? I want to know here what the power is with deciding what goes on that offense right now. Because someone was doing a very good job the other day and someone wasn't clearly. So I want to know who's responsible for the first half and responsible for the second half.
I can tell you almost without doubt from watching that game, the first half is on Bruce Arians. He had the original game plan and it did not work. In the second half, maybe he made the adjustments, but I would just say by the way the game was called, it looked more like a Patriots type game from, a year or two ago. So I think this is Bruce Arians in the first half. I think it's Tom Brady in the second half.
And that's pretty damning of Bruce Arians. I mean, we talked about this before. That's pretty damning of Bruce Arians if that is how you're always with you with Tom Brady and all those weapons.
Good, Steve.
Yeah, I just think Brady's not a guy at this point who's going to beat himself. I think he's been there, done that far too many times. And I would be not comfortable playing Tampa Bay from this point forward. Like you said, they're bringing a lot of people in the fold. Brown, I saw Gronkowski make a couple of good catches, and he's getting Gronk more involved, and that makes everybody happy and elevates everybody. I think that Tampa Bay is becoming more and more dangerous each of these last 2 weeks to have to play. I think they're still on the outside looking in, aren't they?
No, they'd be in the playoffs right now.
Are they in the playoffs right now?
I think the thing that concerns me is this. I don't see any improvement. I don't see improvement because of one simple fact. They're not running the ball successfully. And if they don't run the ball successfully, when you play a team like New Orleans, as what happened when they played New Orleans or even the Rams against that defense, if you can't run the ball and they put 7 or 8 guys into coverage, Tom Brady's going to have some issues. You've got to be able to run the ball usually to get to a Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl. Right now, I don't see that ability, Sam.
No, I don't either. They have some guys. Ronald Jones has had a decent year. They Fournette, who had 2 touchdowns the other day. But they're not the kind of guys who are going to go out there and do 100 yards per game consistently. They're not like how year they had him with the Rams. I know he was getting hurt a little bit, beat up in the playoffs, but they had a running game there. San Francisco last year had a running game. And now you're suddenly in a situation where the Buccaneers are not good enough to not have a running game right now. The offensive line's not that good. The defensive secondary is not that. And we've seen them lose to the Rams. We've seen them lose to the Saints twice. This is what's going to happen when you play teams that can make you one-dimensional and still have good players in the secondary. I don't see the Bucs making the Super Bowl the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, the way you just talked about teams playing, Tom Brady could be the greatest thing that ever lived, which he probably is as an NFL quarterback, but it's still not going to be enough. If it was, he would have been to more Super Bowls than what he went to. Would he go to 9? I mean, that means over half of his seasons he didn't make it to the Super Bowl, Steve.
How many other quarterbacks have made 9 Super Bowls?
None. Actually,
none. I rest my case, but I will say this in terms of your concern about the lack of running game for Tampa Bay. Nobody's more of a master in the NFL at using the short dump passes to tight ends, to running backs coming out and throwing under coverage and letting his running backs do the work from 2 yards on the other, catch a ball 2 yards past the line of scrimmage and use it. And to me, that's just like having a running back.
It's not.
I disagree with you entirely.
Well, then you're completely
because you
wrong.
got to respect Tom Brady's deep ball.
No, you don't.
When you've got
don't.
Antonio Brown, you've got Gronkowski, who are able to do the deep threats and deep balls, and then you just take your running backs, whoever they are, and you dump it to them, and you just let them get their 3, 4, 5, 6 yards per play, which I don't think there's a quarterback in the NFL today, yesterday, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, who's been better at that. I mean, start naming all the great running backs that the Patriots had when they were winning Super Bowls. I can't think of a lot of them.
Well, this is the thing, Steve.
Right or wrong, can you name a bunch of running backs that played for the Pats when they were winning? I mean, they had name brand running backs, but were they great running backs? Are any of them going in the Hall of Fame?
Steve, if you just throw short passes to backs out of the backfield,
no, you mix it up.
Mix it up with what?
With your deeper balls, your throw over the middle balls, you've got Antonio Brown, who Sam says is looking better, getting more involved in the offense. I saw Gronkowski the last 2 weeks get more involved in the offense.
All right, so what I'm going to do
is widens their breadth of receivers he can throw to. And Brady, unlike Rivers and Roethlisberger, can still throw the deep ball with precision.
Okay, he can, but this is the thing: he can't. Not against a defense that takes that. You can take that away easily, Steve, and it's been done to him. It was taken away.
You can't guard the whole field.
Yes, you can.
You can't guard the whole field.
You won't listen to know how to guard the whole field. You're just going to run off at your mouth, and you're going to be quiet for a second. I'm going to explain this to you. If you watch the teams that beat the hell out of him, the Rams, the Saints, they all do the same thing. They play man press. They blitz up the middle. That's all you got to do. By blitzing up the middle against the bad O-line,
I'm going to watch it away. I'm going to watch the Today Show for the rest of this show. So, go ahead.
Well, I thought you were going to watch the Today Show. It's other than the fact that you're obviously wrong and you don't want to be told that you're wrong, so you're going to act like a fucking fool is not my issue here. My issue is the fact that if I play man press on everybody and I blitz the middle, I got a couple safeties over the top, I've just eliminated everything you can do if all you want to do is throw short and mix in a deep pass with it.
Well, let's look at it this way. Yesterday when the Saints played the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes' longest pass was 23 or 24 yards downfield. He didn't complete anything longer than that. Ordinarily, this is a team that's used to completing 30-plus yard passes downfield. And here's the thing. The Saints, you have Malcolm Jenkins at safety, who's basically can play the linebacker if you want him to. You have Demarius Davis, a good cover backer. You've got Marcus Williams, a good midfield. You've got decent corners. You've got Marshall Lattimore out there. The Rams, you have John Henry Johnson, Taylor Rapp, and Jordan Fuller at safety, along with Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey at cornerback. You can't throw against those teams deep because of all the great players they can coverage.
Yeah, and if you cannot block the defensive front, you're not going to have time to throw the ball deep. And all you got to do, like I said, play man under, put a couple safeties high, game's over. The Buccaneers, I hope they go to the Super Bowl because I really like Tom Brady and I like how it pisses everybody off when he gets there. But right now, unless they start to run the ball, they have no chance in hell. I mean, right now in the NFC, I think there's only one good football team, and that's the Saints. And that's it. I think the NFC will be dominated by the Saints if Drew Brees is healthy. Even if Michael Thomas doesn't play, I think the Saints win the NFC.
I don't know. I know Green Bay has the biggest issue with Green Bay is obviously run defense. We talked about this for the past year and a half at this point. But the Saints don't really run the ball that consistently anymore. Not the past 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, they did against the Broncos, but other than that, they haven't run the ball that great.
But they have Alvin Kamara, and they have a good football coach. All they got to do is make up their mind to go out and run the ball between the tackles, and the game's over. I mean, and Green Bay, you're rolling with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been in the playoffs multiple times. He's lost multiple home playoff games. I would roll with the Saints right now. I don't really consider the Packers a serious threat right now. I think the Packers are in a bad division. Their schedule's not been that tough. This looks a lot like last year does to me. They might come out and win a playoff game or two, but in the end, in the championship game, I don't think they're winning it, and I don't think it matters where it's being played at. I mean, the Packers, you talk about how the Chiefs barely get by people. It's not like the Packers are blowing people out of the water.
That's true. I think they had a game against Jacksonville maybe two weeks ago. They didn't do that good.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even blow out Jacksonville, Steve. You got to be able to blow out Jacksonville if you're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because Jacksonville sucks. But next up, the New England Patriots were eliminated. Steve Risley is a Colts fan. Can you tell us how that made you feel?
Didn't give it any thought. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I like him as a quarterback. I don't like to see dynasties come to an end any more than anybody else does. I think that the days of the Patriots are being the dominant team in the NFL are gone. So that was a fun run. And, we all love to hate the Pats, and they kept winning, and we kept clapping for them after they won. So it doesn't really affect the Colts to any great degree.
Well, I know it doesn't affect the Colts, but Colts fans do hate the New England Patriots. I just thought
I'm a Colts fan, and I don't hate the Patriots.
And I think this. I don't think that the Patriots are necessarily dead. I think it may take a couple years to build this back. But the thing that would scare the hell out of me if I'm a Patriot fan is how good the Dolphins and how young the Dolphins are and the Bills. But when we watch this game, it just makes you wonder, if Tom Brady would have stayed in New England, the Patriots would be a playoff team this year, Sam.
I mean, they're 6-8 without him, and that's with Cam Newton, who's barely thrown for over 300 yards at any point this year. So if you're 6-8 with Cam Newton and some of the running backs and the injuries you have, those receivers, Jacoby Myers receiving option, I have to think you'd probably win 9 or 10 Tom Brady, and that probably would be good enough to get a wild card spot. I think you'd probably beat the Dolphins because of the Tom Brady alone. And I think that you're right. I mean, they would have had a playoff shot here, but they probably wouldn't be in as good a position as the Buccaneers are.
All right, Tua Tagovailoa going against New England Patriots. A couple weeks ago, Justin Herbert, who I guess is going to be crowned the AFC or NFL Rookie of the Year, got beat 45-0. There was something that I found intriguing yesterday. And Tua throws an interception from New England's 3-yard line early in the first quarter. He found himself in a similar situation early in the fourth while facing a 2-point deficit. And instead of letting another one rip into a crowded area of the field, he pulled the ball down, escaped a blitzing Patriot, and ran it in himself to score, his first of 2 on the ground. And I think that type of instant education and application by doing it is very encouraging for those on the Tua train in Miami. And I think those 2 plays, one at the start of the game and one at the end, tell me that Tua is going to be a special player in Miami, Sam.
Well, he didn't have his top 3 receiving options. Jakeem Grant, Mike Gesicki, and Devontae Parker did not play the other day. So it's no wonder he had maybe a little bit of struggle moving the ball through the air. But like you said, he's 20 for 20. So it wasn't like he was terrible. He had that 1 pick. From that, got better. And he punches 2 in on the ground. So to me, this was about as good as you could ask for from Tua Tagovailoa in this game, considering he had so many limited weapons.
All right, Steve, what's your take on Tua? I think he's exceeding our expectations, but I don't know that I'd go so far as to make the moniker he's going to be a special player yet. Everything he's doing is he's showing improvement to me every time he steps on the football field. And I think that the Dolphins made the right choice to go with him over Fitzpatrick and go ahead and the bonus for Miami is while they're teaching him how to play quarterback in the NFL, he's winning. And all of a sudden now the Dolphins control their own destiny to get in the playoffs. So I think he's got potential to be a bona fide quarterback in the NFL. Anointing somebody special or star status this early in their career. Seen a lot of those guys like that fizzle out.
Like who?
Goff.
I said Goff sucked from the start. So
Yeah, well, Goff's probably the latest example I can think of guys. I was thinking Colt McCoy. I remember he came into the league, one of those players that was like, he's the next coming.
I don't remember that with Colt McCoy.
Yeah, I vaguely do. You're not old enough.
I'm pretty sure I am. I'd have probably been like 40 when he came into the league, Steve. So.
I mean, I'd have to go through a list. If you went through a list of the young quarterbacks that have come in who have done marginally good jobs and made it to NFL quarterback status. But I don't know that they're Breeze-ish, Brady-esque. Those are anointed superstars and bona fide special players.
All right, next up, Kyler Murray beats Jalen Hurts 33-26. Huge game for the Cardinals. There's still a game up in the wild card, and Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray both played really well yesterday. They combined for 744 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 each. Great football game. Jalen Hurts in just his second start looked special, Steve, didn't he? I said looked special. I didn't.
Well, no, I mean, again, you're seeing these guys. I don't know what it is, but it seems these guys come in more prepared to play than I can remember in the last 4 or 5 years, where you didn't expect anything. Even a guy like an Andrew Luck, you didn't expect really a consistency out of him until 3 or 4 years into his career, and he was just starting to develop that when he decided to retire.
Really? Andrew Luck was a stud from the start.
Well, he had his moments, but he also, made some bad decisions. These guys are making fewer and fewer bad decisions early in their careers. And that's the same thing with Tua in Miami. They're just not making the dumb mistakes. Look at Mahomes. Just not making the really idiotic plays that you would think a rookie quarterback would make.
Andrew Luck was 11-5.
Andrew Luck might be a bad choice. Okay.
Yeah, it was. That's why I was going to bring it up.
Okay. All right. So I'll give you that. I'm just thinking of names. I wasn't totally prepared with my research to look at all the quarterbacks who came in unheralded or heralded well beyond their means, only to just become where are they now type players. Oh, he's playing there now. So, but yeah, I thought this was two good young quarterbacks going at it. It was a fun game to watch. And I think you're seeing a transition of quarterbacks, new ones coming in the league and old ones starting to fade out.
All right, the Cardinals. The thing that stood out to me here is I am not a huge defender of Cliff Kingsbury, but the fake punt, in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, Sam, I thought was probably the gutsiest call of the entire NFL Sunday yesterday, and it worked, which always helps.
Yeah, it certainly makes it look a little bit smarter when you have those decisions work out for you. And Kyler Murray had a really good game. He does sometimes worry me. I think he had an interception. I think he put the ball around one time. So Murray, for me, he's making the star plays necessarily, but at the same time, there are always these 1 or 2 moments per game where you just wonder what's going through his head. There are some decisions-making processes here that I think he's not fully acclimated to yet. But it helps that you have Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins make some incredible catches in the end zone. I know Larry had a great one. So did DeAndre Hopkins the other day. I think that the Cardinals' defense has been a little bit improved the last couple weeks. Now, granted, they're going against New York's offensive line and Philadelphia's offensive line. So take what you hold from that. They had 5 or 6 sacks the other day, and they had quite a few against Daniel Jones the past weekend. So if they can get that line going, I think that will help Arizona come playoff time.
Yeah, if they can get to the playoffs. Do the Cardinals make the playoffs, Steve? They finished. They're 8-6. They're a game up on the Bears. They currently hold the 7th and final spot in the NFC. They've got a host of 49ers, and then go to the Rams the last game of the season. Do the Cardinals make the playoffs, Steve?
Well, how much of that do you think the Rams factor into that right now? Because the Rams are reeling. I mean, they're heading south as fast as they can
Well,
get down.
the problem with the Rams is this: they'll reel one week, and then the next week they look great, and then they'll reel the next week.
I mean, I'm out here in L.A. and there was some ugliness that was spit around on the local channels about the Rams right now, and of course, the fan base doesn't determine what a team does. A team does, but there seems to be. I mean, if you watched Donald come off the field last night, I wouldn't have been in one big golf and been anywhere kind of near Donald last night when he was walking off the field. He did not look like a happy camper. He was muttering things out of his mouth that you could pretty well read and didn't have to be an interpreter about what the offense is doing to that team right now. So I think that the Cardinals make the playoffs. I think the Rams right now are in jeopardy. I don't know. What is the Rams' schedule like the rest of the season?
The Rams schedule the rest of the season?
Yeah.
Well, I know they finished with the Cardinals. Let's see.
And that could be
Seahawks,
right?
Seahawks. They played the Seahawks. They played they played the Cardinals. They could lose both of those games.
Well, and so you literally could come down to the Cardinals-Rams being for the last playoff spot. Correct?
You got the Bears in there. No, right now they would both be in. The Bears are the issue for those two teams right now. So
the Bears play the Jaguars next week.
Yeah, who plays Jaguars?
The Bears do. So the Bears get the Jaguars. Yeah. So the Cardinals should win. That keeps them a game up. The Rams lose, so they'll both be a game up on the Bears. I don't know how the tiebreakers go. I know that the Bears did lose to the Rams earlier in the season. So the Rams would take a tiebreaker with them. Did the Bears play the Cardinals this season, Sam?
I do not think so. I can check one more time real quick. I was positive they did.
I don't think.
Yeah, they have not played them this year.
Yeah, the NFC North played the AFC South. I know that. So they faced all the teams in the AFC South. I don't think they played anybody out west.
All right. So you never know. Maybe you get a three-way.
Well, as you all know, they pair up conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I know the Colts won against the AFC North and the NFC North.
All right, next up, the Tennessee Titans 46, the Detroit Lions 25. Ryan Tannehill was on fire. Derrick Henry was on fire. And basically, the Detroit Lions caught on fire. The Titans win the game. They stay in first in the AFC South.
This gets interesting.
The Titans were impressive yesterday, Steve, while the Colts struggled a little bit.
No, I agree. But I think the Colts probably had the tougher of the two opponents.
Really? They both suck. Neither one of them had a tough opponent.
I agree. Neither team is very good.
I think the Lions might actually be better than the Texans.
They might be, but it just seems that they said this is the first time the Colts have swept Houston in God knows how many years. So and the Colts have never played well. Houston's a dangerous football team because of Deshaun Jackson, or what is it Watson?
Deshaun Watson.
Watson. I'm sorry. They're just he alone can change the outcome of a game, and he damn near did it yesterday. But anyway, back to Tennessee. I think they're a better football team than the Colts and should carry out and win that division.
But they got to play the Packers.
Right. Here's the deal. They've got to go to Green Bay, and Indianapolis has to go to Pittsburgh. Who's got the tougher of the games in those two games?
Actually, I think they're both going to win.
Do you really?
Yeah, because I think we just talked about the Packers. If you can't stop the run, the last person in the world you want to see is Derrick Henry. And I think there's questions in the secondary, too. I think the Titans pull the upset. I think the Colts will play the Steelers. The Steelers' offense has been horrible. I think the Colts are going to win that game. And then at the end of the year, you do have the advantage if you guys play the Jaguars and the Texans play against the Titans. I mean, either way, I think both win out, and I think that the Titans win the division.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with you. But back to Tennessee, yeah, I think Tennessee is playing just a slight clip below Kansas City and Buffalo right now. I think they're playing as probably the third best team in the AFC. I think they're playing better than Pittsburgh is right now.
Well, I think there's teams that won't make the playoffs that are playing better than Pittsburgh is right now, but Pittsburgh
Right.
will get healthy tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
But the Chicago Bears stayed alive yesterday, as the Bee Gees would say. Sam, have you ever seen Saturday Night Fever?
No.
Oh my God!
Don't ever see it. It's the dumbest damn show ever. But the Chicago
All right.
Bears beat the Minnesota Vikings. The soundtrack's kick ass, though.
Hey,
Chicago,
yeah, you want some interesting fact on that real quick? Can I have a
no,
little
but go ahead.
10-second timeout? Robert Stigwood was a guy who kind of helped create the Bee Gees in second career. Bee Gees were a band in the early 70s out of Australia.
Oh, they were even in the 60s, weren't they? I thought they
The
started
late
like
60s, early
late
70s.
60s. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were an Australian band. They did a lot of music like Bread. They did a lot of soft rock. And then they kind of faded away a little bit when that kind of music went out and the Stones started taking over. Well, about in the mid-70s, they reinvented the Bee Gees, and Stigwood was doing this film called Saturday Night Fever. And essentially, he was also doing the rebirth of the Bee Gees. So he went to the Bee Gees and said, I need a soundtrack, but I need it in 48 hours. So virtually all 5 songs that the Bee Gees performed in Saturday Night Fever were written and done and performed and put on records within 48 hours. And that went on to become one of the number one or two selling albums of all time, Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
I have that album in my garage somewhere, too.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it.
Yeah. But, all right, the Chicago Bears 33, Minnesota Vikings 27. Mitchell Trubisky continued his late season resurgence. I think he did this last year a little bit too, Sam. But now the Bears are 7-7, and there is a pathway here. And when you look at the remaining schedule, I think this can be done because what they finished with, I know they finished with the Packers the last game of the season, but it's also possible the Packers are going to be playing for nothing and may not, put out their best effort in that game. And the Bears next week take on the Jaguars. It seems like everybody plays the Jaguars. But the Bears have a shot to make the playoffs here.
No, they absolutely do. And Trubisky has been good towards the end of the season here, but I've seen some crazy stuff about him sticking around for this year. No, he should be gone. He should be gone after this year. I think the big thing for them has been David Montgomery. I think he has 3 games over 100 rushing yards in the past 4 weeks. So he's been phenomenal for them. The other day he had 146 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. I think that's what's really opened up this offense here is you have a running game that's finally working because it was terrible for the first half of the year. And I think that's helping Trubisky out down the stretch. But again, even if he plays well in the final couple of games, Trubisky should not be around Chicago next year.
Steve, agree or disagree?
I disagree. I've been a Trubisky fan. I just like the way he plays football. I know he's all over the place, and he's a little bit slower learner than some of the other quarterbacks that have come in. But Mike, I've been a fan of his from day one. A fan in the sense that I kind of like the way the guy plays quarterback. He plays Bears quarterback, kind of all over the place, kind of like McMahon. McMahon was a better quarterback. Don't get me wrong on that. But he plays that same type of, I'm going to screw up 3 plays and I'm going to kill you with my 4th play. And he plays football that way.
Why would you want a quarterback like that?
Well, I don't think you want one, but I think that's kind of how the Bears have played football for as long as I can remember.
Well, I can say this, Steve. I think Mitch Trubisky
Starting with Bobby Douglas and moving their way right through everybody that's played.
I think Mitch Trubisky sucks. But I'm not going to tear you up on this because the thing is this. Mitch Trubisky is 28-20 as a starting quarterback, 60 touchdowns to 35 interceptions. Those are numbers that I don't think anybody would expect to see when they Google Mitch Trubisky, Sam. So explain yourself.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. But really, I mean, he's been better the past couple weeks, but really, let me put it this way. Sam Darnold's playing better towards the end of the season. He's worth keeping around for another year. Even though Trubisky's playing better towards the end of his season here, he's not worth keeping around. You can't keep dancing with this guy. You can't keep being the Bears and saying, we're going to try this over and over again. You get the same thing all over them. It's going to be the same thing. He's going to start slow and maybe pick it up in the final 3 or 4 games of the year. It's never going to change. You're never going to get better if you keep Trubisky.
Mike Honcho, who has the best name of anybody that asks questions or makes comments on the show, says, my favorite bit of the show, Sam, have you seen? I haven't even noticed that was said that much. Huh.
Oh yeah, we say it all.
No, it's about a weekly thing at this point. It happens 2 or 3 times a week.
Hey Sam, have you seen Mystery Alaska?
Oh, that's what it is. I said okay. I didn't even realize we were doing that. And no, Sam's not seen Mystery Alaska, which is a movie about the New York Rangers going to Alaska to
playing against an Australian in hockey.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not a bad movie.
I don't think that Foles is the answer to the Bears at all. Foles to me is a quarterback who had one great year.
I didn't know. Foles had more than one great year, but I mean,
he had good years. He had one great year.
No, he had 2 great years. I mean, he had his first year where he threw 29 touchdowns and 3 interceptions and took the Eagles to the playoffs.
Yeah, and then he went to Super Bowl the next year.
No, he didn't, because he actually went to the Rams or something after that, didn't he, Sam?
Yeah, he was in the Rams for a little while, and that wasn't that great. He was in
Yeah, he was there.
He was at the Rams, and he was at Kansas City for a year before getting back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so you're wrong again. But there we go. Anything else? Sam, have you seen, just kidding, the Seattle Seahawks? Because they don't look too good right now to me, Sam. I think they're in trouble. The Washington Redskins front 7 played really well. Dwayne Haskins, only he did complete some passes yesterday. So this tells us Washington's defense is pretty good. How much concern do we have in Seattle right now?
I think you have a lot. I mean, but granted, the Rams, who you're competing with right now, the Rams just lost the other day to the New York Jets. So maybe comparatively within your division, you're not that worried. But I think overall, if you're looking at teams like Green Bay and the Saints, I think we're starting to get a little uneasy because you ran the ball pretty well the other day. You had Chris Carson with 63 yards, Carlos Hyde 55, Russell Wilson 52, and you still only won by 5 points. And you still only scored 20 points offensively. And Russell Wilson gets a beat-up Washington secondary, had 100 touchdown interceptions. It just doesn't seem right. And frankly, the offensive line for Seattle, they're not that good. And Washington didn't have Antonio Gibson. If they have Antonio Gibson and Alex Smith, they win this game.
Wait a second. This is the thing. You know, Washington's great defensive line had 12 sacks over the previous 4 weeks. They had none against Seattle. So Seattle also had Carlos Hyde, who runs 26 times for 181 yards. You can't blame this on the Seattle offensive line. I actually think from what I saw yesterday, Seattle may be more dangerous now. I don't think they're playing well right now, but if their offensive line plays better, the defense has started to play a little bit better. I think Seattle is more of a factor right now than what they were a month ago.
Really? You go that far? I
said more of a threat.
No.
I mean, they went for a while where I thought that they were just dropping off, but now this is the thing. They've got Russell Wilson. They got DK Metcalf. They've got receivers. They've got a running game now. If they're not getting sacked and they are running the ball for 180 yards a game, I don't think Russell Wilson's going to have too many games where he only throws for 120 yards. I'm telling you this right now. This is Russell Wilson. It doesn't matter what's going on in week 14 or week 15. As long as he gets to the show, he's a threat.
Well, that's going to be said. Same thing for any other elite quarterback. You get there to the playoffs, they're liable to have a big game and just basically take over and win by themselves.
Yeah, like Joe Flacco. What do you think, Steve? Seattle in trouble? Seattle not in trouble? Is Washington going to win the East?
I think that Seattle is pretty reliant on Russell Wilson's arm. All the good things that are happening to them are happening. And again, I don't watch a lot of the Seahawks play, but it seems to me when I do, it's another Russell Wilson highlight that I'm seeing. And I know their breadth of depth is growing a little bit, but I would put the Seahawks below the Colts, and I don't think the Colts are going to go 2 games into the playoffs. I just think that they're reliant on Russell's, and he's having what on a good team would potentially be an MVP year, but he's not playing on a great team, and I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they'll, like the Colts or something, will just fizzle quickly. I don't think they're a factor this year.
All right, they'll be a factor because Russell Wilson will make them a factor.
If that's the way it'll happen, if it happens, I agree with you.
All right, the Cowboys are still alive in the NFC East. They win 41-33. Does anybody care?
I do, because I tell you what, and again, I talk incessantly about my Colts, but if I could get Andy Dalton to quarterback the Colts, I think the Colts would be a better football team.
Really? They'd be better with Andy Dalton instead of Phillip Rivers. I'm an Andy Dalton fan.
No, because I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to play next year.
Oh, I think Phillip Rivers is going to play next year.
You think so? Okay.
He's got 10 kids. He doesn't want to go home all the time, at least for 6 months to get the hell away from the kids.
I tell you what, I have actually gained respect for the Cowboys. I mean, they have taken a beating more ways to Sunday this year, and they dug themselves a huge hole, and they are now climbing out of it, and they're doing it in typical Cowboys fashion. So
they beat Cincinnati and San Francisco.
They're winning games at the right time of the year, and before this is all said and done, I mean, can the Cowboys catch the Skins?
Oh, they can, but
oh my God, I said the word.
No, because they're the Redskins. That's just the way it is on this show. They're the Redskins, and Cleveland will always be the freaking Indians. But because I can't remember new names.
Yeah, well, how do the Blackhawks stay the Blackhawks, and how do the Braves stay the Braves? But that's another show.
No, that's another show when they change their names in a year. So. Yeah. Well, I just can't have all these name changes. I won't know which team's which anymore. And it's just an
I tell you what, I watched, because the Cowboys was the afternoon game on out here. And I just like the way the Cowboys are playing football right now. I just think that Dalton's got them calmed down. He's got them playing within themselves a little bit more. And I think there might be a little dogfight in the NFC East before this is all said and done.
I think there's already a dogfight because they're all dogs, but I do believe
I think New York Giants are out of it. I think they're done.
I believe the Philadelphia Eagles are going to smack the Dallas Cowboys right upside the head and put them out of their misery.
Where's the game at?
I believe this. I believe the Eagles will win the division if the Redskins lose to the Panthers next week. If the Redskins lose to the Panthers, that changes everything. And then that makes Eagles-Redskins for the division championship the last game of the season. And the Eagles are a better football team right now.
So I didn't even realize Philadelphia's still in it.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I forgot
going to win this.
Still in it. That's right.
Jalen Hurts, I'm telling you, if they get to that last game, Eagles-Redskins, Alex Smith, if he's healthy, is a more consistent quarterback. But if Jalen Hurts goes in that game and goes off like he did against the Cardinals, Alex Smith's not going to be able to keep up with him. So I hope for an Eagles-Redskins game for the division championship where the Eagles win it to go 6-9-1, while the Skins just missed the playoffs at 6-10. Next up, the Ravens rolled the Jaguars. Everybody rolls the Jaguars. Let's go to the Colts. All right, the Indianapolis Colts, they won, Steve. That's all that matters, right?
And that's about all they did.
And that is all that matters right now, Sam.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I tell you, their defensive secondary is scaring the crap out of me, because they are a bunch of big play rays back there. They make the big plays in their defensive secondary, but they give up too many of the easy plays. Watson was just picking them apart, and that's really without any help.
Yeah, that's with no receivers, no real running game.
Exactly. So. And he still was picking that secondary apart. Fortunately, our offense is playing well enough right now that they can sustain some of that. And Darius Leonard is having virtually, if there was an award for all defensive MVP, Darius Leonard would have to be in that boat as a candidate.
I think there is. I think there is an award for defensive MVP.
Player of the year. Okay. Yeah. Well, he's got to be a candidate, because he is keeping that defense in the hunt, which is keeping the Colts in the hunt. But I don't see the Colts as a threat in the playoffs to anybody. I don't know. I don't just see him being good enough. It's my team. It's hard to say that, but I'm trying to be realistic about it on a talk show we're doing. and not be that blindly favorite. Phillip Rivers, every time he drops back, scares the crap out of me that something bad is going to happen.
Get a trip and break his hip.
He's going to be in geriatric treatment before he knows what happens.
Hey, you know what? You're saying that about him. You're like 22 years older than him.
No, I'm actually about 22 years. Yeah, exactly right. I am. Yeah.
There you go.
He's 39. The upside of the Colts right now is that I think our running game has come to life. We don't have a big back, obviously, but we got a couple of good backs. And our offensive line is punching holes as good as anything that they're doing. And they're keeping the defensive players off of Rivers. T.Y. Hilton seems to have re-engaged a little bit finally. So offensively, I think the Colts are fine. I think they'll take their offense to the Steelers next week. But like I said, Watson, we were lucky to get out of that game with a win. Interesting enough, the scores of both games against them this year was 26-20 and 27-20. So it came down to one score both times, and the Colts got both of them. You guys, what do you think?
I don't know. It's the Colts. They're going to get beat early in the playoffs. Right. I think Phillip Rivers has done a great job. I still think they need a couple more weapons on offense for him, especially at wide receiver. I think here the biggest question is this. My birthday was Saturday, and Sam didn't even thank me on Facebook, Steve, and you thanked me like 36 hours after it was already said and done. I want to know what the hell's going on here.
I liked the post on Facebook, I'm pretty sure.
You liked it. That doesn't mean anything. Anybody could like a post. You didn't say happy birthday, Mike. You know, Steve.
Oh, happy birthday, Mike. Happy birthday, Mike.
No, I don't want to hear it now. And then Steve, like a day and a half later, on a post that I put up for people to give them a second chance to be able to do the right thing. And it took him forever. I mean, he liked it, and then like 45 minutes later put happy birthday. I don't even know if he did. I think he just liked it.
No, it's because my wife called me and asked what I wanted for dinner while I was writing the post up, and I had to figure out what I wanted for dinner.
Well, Steve used to like me. He used to tell me happy birthday. I mean, he would even call and text me and tell me happy birthday. Not so much now.
I don't take my calls anymore.
Oh, I don't take your calls anymore. Whatever you call me. You'd never call me, Steve.
Mike thinks big play rays are nice.
I know. And and that's Mike Honcho. All right, America's team tonight's on Monday Night Football, so the ratings will be through the roof. Ryan Finley from North Carolina State will lead the Bengals against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Are you feeling an upset, Steve?
No. Okay. I don't want an upset because I don't want to do anything to piss the Steelers off right now.
They've lost 2 in a row. If they lose again tonight,
they'll be pissed off.
I'm not really pissed off. I think they'll just be depressed at that point.
Yeah, they'll either be depressed or pissed off.
Once you've lost 3 in a row, you're no longer pissed. You just suck. And if you lose to the Bengals, you're beyond sucking.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, I would say this. If the Steelers are ever going to be able to successfully run the ball, it'll be tonight. If Ben Roethlisberger's ever going to look young again, it'll be tonight. I don't think the Bengals will be able to score any points whatsoever.
How does a game like this get on Monday Night Football?
I think it's because at the start of the year, this looked like Joe Burrow. Probably a 5. It looked like Joe Burrow and maybe a 500 Bengals team.
Right.
Against the Steelers team just above 500 with Big Ben Roethlisberger, and it turned into a Steelers team that's lost 2 games in a row, a Bengals team that can't get out of their own damn way, and Joe Burrow's hurt, and they got Zach Taylor, who's, once again, he's a soft little bitch as the head coach, and this is just not going to turn out well for anybody that watches this game tonight. I think the Steelers win this game 27-0. And I think Ryan Finley will probably be taken off the field by early second quarter on a cart, and then whoever his backup is will be gone by the middle of the third quarter, and then Bobby Hart will play quarterback to finish up the game.
I was wondering where you're going with that, but no, I think 28-7.
Mike Brown, how are they going to score a touchdown? Are you thinking that Brandon Wilson?
It's going to happen. Pittsburgh will screw up one play. They'll screw up one coverage. T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd will get deep on them. They get one play like that. They get it against Miami. They'll do it against Pittsburgh.
No, they're not, because Ryan Finley's throwing them the ball. It's Ryan Finley. I love Ryan Finley. He's a nice guy. I've hung out with Ryan Finley before. I got his phone number, Steve, if you want to call him. But don't call him right now because he's probably in the bathroom pooping, because that's what I would be doing on a day like this. How about you, Steve?
I already took a shit this morning.
Hey, it's better to get one than to take one, though, Steve.
Hey, you get up in the morning, you do the 3 S's, man. You shit, shower, and shave, and you get on with your life.
I take a shower and shave before I go to bed.
Oh, gross.
Why?
No, don't tell anybody you do that.
Why?
You know how much shit's in your bed? All the dead skin,
I hate to tell you this.
Ice.
Wait a second. If I get a shower before I go to bed, I'm cleaner while in bed than you are after your dirty
You
ass.
shed skin 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, buddy. Know your dermatology.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a lady, so I don't know my dermatology that well.
Mm-hmm.
Except for when it comes to Manscaped and the Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0. Ain't that right, Sam?
Exactly. There's the transition we were looking for.
Yeah, it's 3 S's and an M. Shit, shower,
shave, and Manscaped.
Yeah. Trim those balls. Ain't that right, Sam?
Tell me you don't really shave and shower at night.
Actually, I get a shower at night. I get a shower in the morning also.
Oh, God, that's good to know.
Why? Are you going to think about it when you get up every morning? Go ahead, Sam. What were you going to say?
I'm going to think of you in the shower.
Shit. You'd be pretty impressed if you ever saw it. Go ahead, Sam.
Steve is traumatized for a second. Steve's going to judge you for that.
3.0 lawnmower.
Yeah. Hell, ain't nothing more impressive than we manscaping. Go ahead, Sam, before you got interrupted by Steve.
Now, just a reminder, everyone, use promo code T20 at manscaped.com to help the show out. Get 20% off your first order plus free shipping.
Sam, where are you right now? Are you at your mom's house?
I'm at my parents' house, yeah.
Oh, God. See, that's what college kids do. They graduate. What do? They go back and move in with mom and dad.
He graduated like 2 days ago, Steve.
Oh, guys.
Yeah, give me.
I left Indiana and went right to my apartment with my buddy. We had a nice 3-bedroom apartment with 2 carports, river view, fireplace, burnt orange carpet.
Wait a second. How did you have the money to do that right after you graduated from IU?
Yeah, weren't you an Indiana basketball player?
Yeah.
Then how did you get the money to be able to do that?
I saved money while I was in college.
How would you save money while you're in college when you did
all of the per diem you get when you're on the road? I didn't go to Karma Records to start buying albums and all this crap. I just put it in the bank.
So what was your per diem?
I think back then it was
$15-20.
No, it was like $50 to $60 a day or something like that.
Per road trip or per day?
I'm not getting that, Steve. That's why I don't have an apartment. I don't get that.
He wasn't some candy-ass basketball player who had life given to him. Sam had to work for it.
Well, why didn't you go be a manager, Sam? Because the managers controlled all the money. They're the ones that doled it out.
Well, because Sam's too busy studying. For a sports journalism degree and sports degree in 3 months. Great job, Sam.
What did you get your degree in? Communications, I bet.
Yeah. Sports communications.
And sports are going to be gone in 2 or 3 months. And then what are you going to do, Sam?
My father works in a fit yard.
But, all right, so Steve, when you got out of college, you moved in with a man, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
All right. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, it was a target-rich environment.
A target-rich environment? A target-rich environment.
Yeah.
What kind of targets were there?
They lived in about 4 or 5 apartment units down.
Hey, Mike Honcho needs to come on the show now. He could come on the show. Mike wants to come on Friday and pick the games with as he can because he put balls as smooth as eggs.
All right, Mike.
Hopefully they don't break as easily. But
get Mike on.
We can't now because Mike's worried because he heard about your target-rich environment when you were in school.
Didn't you see?
Out of school.
Sam, did you ever see Top Gun?
I've seen Top Gun.
Then that's where target-rich environment came from.
Yeah, that's also where playing with the boys on the beach and that homoerotic, version of them playing volleyball together came from also too, Steve.
Yep.
Don't you remember playing with the boys and it's got them all out there
Val
diving
Kilmer,
around, all
Anthony
sweaty?
Edwards, Val Kilmer, Anthony
And
Edwards,
there weren't
Tim
that many,
Rostovich.
there weren't many
and-
women on the beach either.
I don't think that was the focus of the scene.
It was playing with the boys was playing, and they were
That was
smacking
the
each other on
that was
the
the
ass and
tease.
rubbing each other's backs.
That
It
was the tease scene for the women watching the movie.
It looked pretty homoerotic to me. What did you think, Sam?
Well, the only guy that says homoerotic is a guy who's afraid of homo people.
You know
Are
what?
we done with the show?
Homo people? You're the
No,
dude-
let's get back.
You're,
Let's
the
wrap
dude that- you're the dude that moved in with your man crush after college. All right, guys, we're going to
Man
wrap it
crush.
up. And that's how Steve invented the Manscaped. Check out manscaped.com, promo code TGT20. As Mike Honcho said, make your balls smooth as eggs.
his eggs.
I still like mine.
I
Don't
like
nick
that
your
phrase.
nuts. I like don't nick my nuts slightly better, but he's like the second best phrase now. Sam, you need to come up with a phrase soon, and so does Steve. All right, tomorrow, guys, we will be back with Sam's quarterback power rankings. Correct, Sam?
Yep, they'll be ready.
And if Risley, if you want to come on, you can come on.
I don't believe in power rankings. That's the biggest farce.
All right, so tomorrow we will go ahead and have the Power Rankings show. Check us out at manscaped.com. Steve's still talking to himself, by the way.
Why did you cut me off?
Because you didn't like talking about Power Rankings, so I figured you didn't want to talk. But I got to go right now. I got stuff to do. So for now,
You got to take a piss.
no, I don't. For Sam Teets, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been listening and watching The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. All right.
Well, Sam, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. It still says
Yeah,
we're live,
yeah.
by the way. I think
You what?
it still says we're live, by the way. I don't think Mike turned it off.
Oh, no, he didn't. No. You have work. Well, all right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you, Steve. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Bye. Have fun tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. See you.